Secure 65 health plans where seniors thrive.
When the next economic collapse comes, will ordinary Americans be protected or sacrificed again while the wealthy survive? Watch now. If your retirement, your savings, and even your child's future all depend on Wall Street, what happens when the market crashes? Watch now.
Secure 65 health plans where senior thrive. Secure 65 health plans where seniors thrive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Secure 65 Health Plans right here on YouTube. And you know what's so great about it? We're going to show you what being patriotic really looks like. We're going to answer your questions, and we're going to provide some clarity. We're not talking about any type of conspiracy. We only deal with the facts. So if you're concerned about your retirement, your investments, your children's account, and what the future may hold with AI and billionaires' wealth tax, buckle in, because we're going to explain to you exactly how it works without any type of fanfare. Now we're going to start with the first clip, and I want you to listen to what he has to say. What this expert is explaining is that a 401k already functions much like a privatized retirement system, because your future income depends heavily on market performance rather than guaranteed protection. Social Security was originally designed to help prevent seniors from falling into poverty, regardless of market conditions. So the real question becomes, should retirement security depend entirely on whether markets are performing well, or should some protections remain guaranteed no matter what happens economically? And for those who have already experienced losing 20%, 30%, or even more during market downturns, the emotional reality is very different from financial theory. Financial professionals often use the term time horizon, which simply means how much time you have left to recover from market losses. Because if you're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s and the market crashes, you may not have another 10, 20, or 30 years to rebuild what was lost. That is why balanced retirement planning matters. And that's why many Americans still value guarantees alongside growth. This is why you need to talk to professionals who are sometimes not in the market for guaranteed strategies that don't have a lot of fees attached, but are worth their weight in gold when crashes occur.
Social Security, when you start to compare it to an investment, that's when it fails. Because when Social Security is thought of as insurance, risk pooled, and you're pooling it with the mortality of other people, that's how it survives for the individual. When you take it and privatize it, you can spend your principal, you can spend your interest, but as soon as that's gone, you're gone. Whereas when it's risk pooled, when you have it pooled with other people, and it's based on those people, when they pass away, that money is still available to credit to current people who are still on the program. So the things that when you privatize it, you get the same problems that you have with a 401k. With a 401k, you can eventually run out of money.
Now, about Elon Musk and calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, even after being shown that he lied about 140-year-olds receiving checks. So, what's the goal here for keeping the average American in the stock market? Can you say Wall Street? Social Security was created to keep seniors, widows, disabled Americans, and families from falling into poverty. And despite all the political attacks over the decades, one fact remains: Social Security has never missed a payment. Not once. That is why this conversation matters so much to all of us. Because when powerful billionaires call Social Security a Ponzi scheme, while simultaneously promoting privatized investment systems tied to Wall Street, ordinary Americans need to ask themselves, why? Whether you are Republican or Democrat, Bernie Sanders has a way to protect your investment for 75 years or more. Social Security is one of the largest and most successful public retirement programs in American history because it provides guaranteed income protection, regardless of market crashes. But if trillions of dollars currently protected inside Social Security were redirected into private markets, financial institutions would gain enormous access to long-term capital and management control. And that changes the risk completely, because markets rise and markets fall, and retirement security tied entirely to Wall Street is no longer guaranteed. And that is why this debate is bigger than politics. It's about whether retirement should remain a protected public promise or become another financial product exposed to market volatility and institutional control. So think carefully about that before deciding who truly represents the interests of ordinary Americans. And there's another part of this conversation I think ordinary Americans rarely hear discussed openly. Many ultra-wealthy individuals do not live primarily off of salaries the way ordinary workers do. They often build wealth through stock ownership, equity, and appreciating assets. And instead of selling those assets and triggering large taxable events, they can borrow against their stock holdings to finance new business ventures, investments, acquisitions, and expansion. So in simple terms, their wealth becomes leverage. But leverage depends heavily on market value. If markets fall significantly, stock values decline, borrowing power shrinks, and financial pressure increases. So when millions of ordinary Americans continuously place retirement savings, 401k investment accounts, and now potentially even children's accounts into markets, that also helps sustain liquidity, valuations, capital flow, and market confidence across the broader financial system. That's why this conversation is bigger than simply helping people invest, because large-scale market participation benefits the financial system itself. And ordinary Americans should understand there is a major difference between participating in markets and controlling the markets. The people with the greatest wealth often have access to private financing, institutional protections, diversified assets, tax strategies, and leverage tools most ordinary investors don't. So while ordinary families may experience fear during downturns, large institutions are often positioned to survive volatility very differently. That's why people need to fully understand the system before emotionally buying into slogans about ownership, freedom, or economic participation.
Let's talk about something Elon Musk said on the Joe Rogan podcast.
So Social Security is the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. Like if you look at the future obligations of Social Security, it far exceeds the tax revenue.
Alright, personally, I'm not surprised that the richest man in the world can't find any value in doing anything that doesn't turn a profit. But for the love of God, that doesn't mean that Social Security is a bad thing. Today, over 70 million people depend on the program. And Social Security has never missed a payment ever. So that would make this either the most successful Ponzi scheme ever run, or it would make Elon Musk a liar. What Social Security is, though, is one of the biggest anti-poverty programs in the country. It lifts more people out of poverty than any other program in the United States. Elon's criticism of Social Security came weeks after he claimed that the program was committing fraud by paying people who were no longer alive. Obviously, that was immediately debunked, but it raised questions like, can the efficiency genius guy read a basic chart? Meanwhile, Elon's been trying to dismantle the agency that runs Social Security, which would make it harder for you to receive the benefits that you've been paying for your whole life. All of this begs the question, why is Elon Musk so dead set on attacking this extremely popular program, which, by the way, Trump said he would protect? Well, the money that the government would save by gutting Social Security is also money that he could pocket in the form of continued tax cuts for the rich. And if Elon Musk was actually interested in protecting your retirement benefits, he would be supporting a real plan. Maybe the one proposed by Bernie Sanders and other legislators. They've proposed lifting the cap on income that's taxable for Social Security. Take a listen.
And when you lift that cap, the other thing you do is you can make Social Security solvent for the next 75 years, so we end this discussion about Social Security going broke.
Now, let's show the third clip. Inside the Big Beautiful Bill is the framework and messaging for what they are calling Trump accounts. Now, this explains how they want it to work, but not what it could eventually become. Because at the very end, the Secretary of the Treasury says the quiet part out loud. He calls it a backdoor into Social Security. That statement should make every American stop and think, because if these accounts are eventually meant to shift retirement away from guaranteed protections and deeper into market systems, then what exactly is the end game? And who benefits most if your future retirement becomes tied even more closely to Wall Street? And there is another detail most Americans don't even realize. This program is not permanent. The government-funded portion only applies to children born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. Now think about that carefully. If this is truly supposed to transform America forever, why is the pilot window tied specifically to this presidential term and only a limited group of children? That alone should make people ask deeper questions, like, who is this really for? Why this timeline? Why launch it this way? And why create urgency around getting millions of families emotionally connected to these accounts immediately? Because once people emotionally connect to a system, well, it becomes much easier politically to expand it later. That's the part people should pay attention to, especially when leaders are openly discussing these accounts as the future, a new generation of capitalists, and even a backdoor into Social Security. That should make every American think very carefully about what the long-term goal actually is. Now, you can already hear there are layers to this conversation, not just what is being said publicly, but what may be quietly taking shape underneath it all. And before we get into the speakers at the Milken Institute Global Conference 2026, I want you to listen to two more important points, because together they begin to reveal the larger direction this conversation may be heading. The more pieces you hear, the more the big picture starts to come into focus. And again, I truly want to know how you feel about all of this. Talk about it with your family. Come back and make comments. Discuss it with your friends, because these conversations are not just about policy. They're about the future all of us will eventually live in. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This moment is really much bigger than politics. Americans are entering a time where many ordinary people are starting to feel disconnected from the systems shaping their future, while a small, powerful group of institutions, billionaires, and political leaders hold more influence than ever before. And whether you agree with this proposal or not, one thing should unite us all: the belief that ordinary Americans deserve to fully understand the systems that will impact their children, their retirement, their work, and their future before decisions are made for them. Because this cannot become a country where only a small group understands the rules while everyone else simply lives under them.
Within Donald Trump's big ugly bill is the creation of a new savings plan for children with the MAGA-friendly name Trump Account. Yes, that name is baked into the law. Now, their overall idea isn't radically new. Similar ideas have been proposed by Democrats before, by Republicans before, and this new program functions essentially like individual retirement accounts with a few complicated rules. And they come with a $1,000 initial deposit from the federal government for children born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. And then parents can contribute up to $5,000 a year in tax-deferred contributions to the account until the child turns 18. Take a listen to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent talking about the new Trump accounts at an event hosted by right-wing news outlet Breitbart.
In a way, it is a backdoor for privatizing Social Security. Like, Social Security is a defined benefit plan paid out that, to the extent that if all of a sudden these accounts grow and you have in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for your retirement, then that's a game changer too.
I don't know if he practiced that line, if somebody wrote him that line, but he just said it's a backdoor for privatizing Social Security, which sounds like what someone sounds like when they say the quiet part out loud.
Now, let's talk about the event hosted by the Milken Institute.
The Milken Center for Advancing the American Dream is celebrating America's 250th One Dream at a Time.
Let me start by giving you a little background on Michael Milken, because he's not just the founder of the Milken Institute. He is one of the most controversial and influential financial figures in modern American history. Milken became famous in the 1980s as the junk bond king on Wall Street. He helped pioneer the high-yield bond market, which dramatically changed corporate finance, leveraged buyouts, and investment culture in America. Supporters viewed him as a financial innovator who expanded access to capital. Critics, however, viewed his work as helping fuel extreme corporate greed, speculative finance, and wealth concentration. In 1990, Milken pleaded guilty to securities and reporting violations tied to insider trading and financial misconduct during the Wall Street scandals of the 1980s. He served prison time, paid massive fines, and was permanently banned from the securities industry. But after prison, Michael Milken rebuilt his public image through philanthropy, medical research, education initiatives, public policy influence, and the creation of the Milken Institute. Today, the Milken Institute Global Conference is one of the most powerful networking and influence events in the world. It brings together billionaires, Wall Street executives, politicians, CEOs, technology leaders, government officials, central bankers, media leaders, policy strategists, and global investors. The conference is often described as a place where money, politics, technology, finance, and policy intersect behind closed doors. And that's important context because the people invited to speak, well, they're not random commentators. These are individuals helping shape economic policy, capital markets, technology investment, retirement systems, AI strategy, tax policy, and the future direction of American capitalism itself. And that's why the panel matters. The session, Investing in Economic Mobility, Building a Path to Opportunity. And it was not simply a casual discussion about helping children save money. The speakers included Senator Ted Cruz, Kevin Hassett, Brad Gerstner, founder and CEO of Altimeter Capital, Michael Dell, and other major financial and political voices connected to markets, policy, and long-term economic strategy. And the reason these individuals were invited is because they represent a very specific worldview, a belief that the future of America should become increasingly tied to market participation, private investment, ownership culture, capital access, and long-term investment systems beginning at childhood. That is the larger philosophy underneath the Trump accounts, Invest America, personal retirement accounts, and expanded market participation. And what makes the conversation emotionally powerful is that many of these same leaders are also discussing AI disruption, labor reduction, wealth concentration, and the restructuring of economic systems at the exact same time. And that's why this conference matters, because these are not just opinions floating around social media. These are conversations happening among people with the power, money, influence, and political access to help turn ideas into national policy.
And this panel has an excellent opportunity. The goals that all three of these people have been working on, Ted Cruz, Kevin Hassett, and Brad Gerstner, for the last year or so, that has come to fruition, but the ideas have been going for a long period of time. And that is, can we get every single child in America to feel like they have a stake in the market? Senator Cruz, let me start with you. You have been totally behind this effort on these investment accounts, now Trump accounts. Brad, this in many ways was your brainchild. How is it unfolded based on how you thought it would?
Well, Mike, thanks for having me, and thanks for your partnership along the way. This really was a dream team to get the Invest America Act passed, and a year ago today was the seminal moment. The Ted had taken the leadership in drafting the Invest America Act in the Senate, that we had the opportunity to meet with the president, saw the idea and said, this is the whole meaning of my presidency. It's the Main Street agenda, to get everybody else into the game, the 60 to 70% of people in America who feel left out and left behind. We need them to feel an ownership stake, be a shareholder automatically in the upside of America from birth. And listen, the battle over wealth taxes is deeply connected to this, because this is a battle for the soul of America.
So does the White House want your money? Listen, they've been working on this, and this is where the conversation stops sounding like a financial idea and starts sounding political. He's talking about legislation, policy, a long-term economic restructuring already being drafted and positioned as the future of America. And maybe what should concern people most is how casually this is being discussed, as if the direction has already been decided for the country. Listen carefully to the language. The whole meaning of my presidency: get everybody into the game. And the answer to more socialism is more capitalism. That's not just economics, that's ideology. And what they are really saying is the future solution for America is not less dependence on markets, it's more dependence on markets. More Americans tied to Wall Street, more children tied to investment systems, more retirement tied to market performance, more economic survival connected to capital markets. That's the vision. And the question ordinary Americans should ask themselves is this: who decided this is what America wants? Because there is a difference between helping Americans build wealth and restructuring the entire country around financial market participation without fully discussing the long-term consequences, especially while AI threatens jobs, especially while Americans already feel economically unstable, especially while wealth inequality continues exploding. And maybe the most political part of all of this is the framing itself. Because anytime ordinary Americans ask for affordable health care, stable retirement, fair wages, housing affordability, or economic protections, well, those concerns are increasingly dismissed as socialism. But somehow, deeper dependence on Wall Street and financial institutions is presented as freedom. Now, that contradiction should concern people, because if the answer to every national problem is more market participation, more financialization, and more dependence on capital systems, then eventually the entire country becomes vulnerable to the same institutions controlling the game itself. And maybe that is the real issue hiding underneath this conversation. Not whether Americans should invest, but whether America itself is quietly being transformed into one giant investment structure where ordinary people carry the risk while the powerful institutions continue designing the rules.
You can't leave 70% of the people out of the upside of compounding and capital and to think we're going to get anything different. And so the answer to that, the answer to more socialism is more capitalism.
What makes this statement by Kevin so powerful is not just what is being said, but what is being assumed. Because the message sounds hopeful. Get everyone into the game. Give people ownership. Let ordinary Americans share in the upside of America. And honestly, who wouldn't want that? The problem is most ordinary Americans already are in the game. Their retirement is in the game. Their 401ks are in the game. Their pensions are in the game. Their housing is tied to the game. Their savings are tied to the game. Their futures are tied to the game. And many of those same Americans still feel financially insecure. So the question becomes, if decades of expanding market participation have already left millions of people feeling left behind, why is the solution more dependency on the very same system they're in? That is the part people need to think about carefully, because this conversation frames capitalism and market participation almost like a moral responsibility. Like the answer to instability is deeper attachment to financial systems. But what happens when workers are replaced by AI? Wages become unstable, Housing remains unaffordable. Healthcare costs continue rising. And ordinary people no longer have enough economic power to meaningfully participate in the upside being discussed. And maybe the most revealing part of his statement is this: the answer to more socialism is more capitalism. But ordinary Americans are not asking for socialism because they hate success. Most people are asking for stability, fairness, dignity, affordable living, and a future where hard work still creates security. That's not socialism. That is survival. And maybe that is the real tension underneath this entire conversation. Because Americans are not rejecting opportunity, and they never have. This is the land of opportunity. They are questioning whether systems designed and managed by the wealthiest institutions in the country truly prioritize ordinary people, or simply require ordinary people to keep feeding the system itself.
Starting in 2027, all 3.7 million children born, when they get their Social Security number, will get an investment account at birth. It will be undeniable that they're in the game. We're going to wrap financial literacy around that, civic literacy around that. So it is the biggest change to the social contract in America in 50 years, right? It will be bigger in 15 to 20 years than Social Security. We're going to move trillions of dollars of wealth into the pockets of Americans who compound in the upside of SpaceX and OpenAI and Anthropic. And that's a way to do it aligned with capitalism.
Now, here are some questions that Kevin is not answering about how this program actually works. Because nobody, and I'm going to say nobody on the stage fully answered any of these questions. First, what exactly does $1,000 buy in today's market? Because depending on the stock price, that could mean a few shares, fractional shares, or simply exposure to an index fund that rises and falls with the market. And who chooses the investments? Wall Street firms, government advisors, fund managers, private institutions? Because somebody controls where the money goes and who pays the management fees. Because investment accounts are not free. 401ks have fees. Mutual funds have fees. Asset managers make money managing, you guessed it, assets. So if millions of children are placed into market systems from birth, who profits from managing all that money over decades? And here's another question. What happens during a market downturn? Because markets are volatile. They rise, they crash, and they recover. And sometimes recovery takes years. So if a child's account loses value during a recession, what protects that money? Or is this simply a way of preparing families to emotionally accept market losses as normal from childhood? And then comes the real life reality. If families lose jobs, if AI reduces employment, if inflation rises, if people are struggling to survive, who exactly continues contributing into these accounts long term? Because stable investing requires stable income. And children cannot legally manage stock accounts themselves. So tell me who truly controls the account until adulthood? Who teaches these children how investing actually works? Can the money be withdrawn early during emergencies? Or is it locked away while families struggle in real time? These are not small questions. These are implementation questions, risk questions, control questions, and future of America questions. And the fact that so many emotional promises are being made before these details are fully explained? Well, that should make every American pay very close attention.
On, the Trump IRAs is another component of this. We have to get, raise the floor for everybody. This is the way to do it. We can't just be against wealth taxes, Mike. This is what everybody's going to see on their phone on July 4th. You've received $1,000. You see the actual shares. So imagine moms and dads who have never owned a single stock in their life, who are anxious about their kid's future because of AI, are going to open this up and say, my kid has a shot. I'm going to add 10 or 20 bucks to that. Michael Dell's going to give 250 bucks to that. Thousands of companies in America are going to contribute to that, right? That's the way we change America.
Well, Brad, that all sounds good, but where are the details? Okay, like which companies? Who has officially committed? How much are they contributing? Is it a one-time marketing contribution or a yearly contribution? A matching contribution? A tax write-off? A public relations campaign? Because those details matter. And how long would those companies continue contributing during recessions, market downturns, and layoffs, or even AI-driven labor cuts? That matters too. Because when people hear thousands of companies are going to help your child, well, it creates an emotional feeling of security and collective investments in America's future. But without specifics, timelines, legal commitments, or guarantees, ordinary Americans are still being asked to trust promises without fully understanding the structure underneath them. And if this proposal is truly transformational, then transparency should not be an option. Parents deserve to know who's contributing, how much are they contributing, how often, who controls the investments, what protections exist, what the fees are, and what happens during economic downturns. Okay? That is not negativity. That is responsible parenting. Because hope without transparency is not a financial strategy. Americans deserve to know who's funding it, who benefits, how long it lasts, who manages the money, and what happens when the economy turns against ordinary families. Because financial literacy is not built on emotional promises. It's built on understanding the details, the risks, the cost, and the long-term realities before making commitments. And when you talk about our children's futures, retirement systems, and generational wealth, trust us is not enough, because history has already shown us something very, very painful. When financial systems fail, wealthy people usually survive. Corporations usually survive. Banks survive. Even Wall Street gets rescued. But ordinary Americans, seniors, working families, retirees, they are usually the ones forced to live with the consequences. So before we wave flags, cheer slogans, or celebrate another beautifully marketed financial system that we don't fully understand, we need to tell you something. If this really isn't about protecting ordinary Americans, we are not willing to believe in a dream that mainly benefits the people at the top. Many of us are still struggling as it is.
Average net worth in America is $621,000. That is higher than Australia and UK and Canada and France and even Singapore and Japan. What is the challenge? Well, one, there's 12.4% of people in this country that are millionaires. But as we go to median net worth, you can see where the U.S. ranks below France, below Canada, below UK, substantially below Australia. So why is Australia where it is today as the highest median net worth of any country in the world? And their superannuation assets now are around $3 trillion for 26 million people. And that's because they didn't allow them to take the money out. You want to talk about that for a moment, Brad? The idea of letting this money compound for at least 18 years or more?
What Michael Milken is doing here is using a very important statistical trick that sounds impressive emotionally, but can completely distort how ordinary Americans understand wealth. He starts with average net worth, and that is where people need to pay attention, because average wealth in America is heavily distorted by billionaires and ultra wealthy households. To give you an example, if Elon Musk walks into a room of ordinary workers, the average wealth of the room suddenly explodes. But that does not mean the ordinary people became wealthy. That is why the median wealth matters far more. Median wealth shows what the middle American actually looks like. Not the billionaire class, not Wall Street, not the ultra wealthy. And this is exactly why Milken quickly pivots from average wealth to median wealth, because the truth underneath the statistics become much harder to ignore. Yes, America has enormous wealth, but much of that wealth is concentrated at the top. That's why the U.S. can rank extremely high in average wealth, while ordinary Americans, well, we still struggle, right? With housing, retirement, medical debt, student loans, and economic insecurity. So that contradiction is the real story. And then comes the Australia comparison. Milken is arguing that Australia's superannuation system created stronger median wealth because workers were essentially forced into long-term retirement investing systems where money could not easily be withdrawn. In other words, people accumulated wealth because the system locked them into compounding investment structures over decades. And that is the philosophical point they are trying to make. If people are forced or strongly encouraged to stay invested long enough, well, wealth eventually grows. But again, there is a major difference between investment growth and economic security, because the average American is not struggling simply because they lack investment accounts, okay? People are struggling because, well, wages have not kept pace. Housing costs have simply exploded. Healthcare costs have also exploded. Oh, and let me not forget, education costs have exploded as well. So retirement protections have been weakened and wealth concentrated upward. That's why this narrative matters and needs to be debunked, because the way these conversations are framed can subtly shift blame on, do you know who? Ordinary Americans. The implication becomes, if people are struggling financially, it is because they are not investing enough. To the contrary, many Americans are not struggling because they failed to buy stocks. They're struggling because the economic foundation underneath the ordinary life became increasingly unstable, while wealth concentrated at the top. And this is where the emotional tension grows deeper, because the proposed solution keeps circling back to more market participation, more investment dependency, more long-term capital exposure, and less access to immediate financial security. That is the part ordinary Americans need to understand. This conversation is not simply about helping people build wealth. No. It's about redefining how Americans are expected to survive economically in the future.
In Australia, they say you have to save 12%, but you're going to put it into an account that you own, you have title to, compounds into best investments that it could possibly invest in. You can look at it daily. You can add money to the account. It is precisely the promise of what we have to have in the future. So our idea was, Mike, if you start at birth and you give all these kids at birth a private account that they own, not the government, it's not a government program, title and ownership to the kid, then 20 years from now, we're going to have 100 million families who own these accounts. And guess what they're going to look like, Mike? They're going to look like Australia's superannuation. And my hunch is that in 2 decades, we're going to have a bunch of kids who say, I'm happy to put away 12% as required by the government, but rather than putting it into a blind government pension program that doesn't compound, can I just put it into the account you've asked me to set up called Invest America or Trump accounts and let it compound, see it grow, right? So that to me is a brilliant program by Australia. It's been transformational for the working class in Australia, and it's where we're headed in this country. There's no doubt in my mind. This guy wrote an editorial in 1998, 1999 called The Ownership Society. We've deprived Americans of their hard work.
The hypocrisy and contradiction is alarming. You don't want to even pay 5%, and the average person is paying 6%. This is what hypocrisy looks like. This is what makes this conversation feel so contradictory, is that the same people resisting a modest wealth tax on billionaires are simultaneously arguing that ordinary Americans should eventually be required to put 12% of their own income into market systems. And let's talk about the so-called wealth tax debate for a second. And honestly, maybe we should stop calling a wealth tax and start calling it what many ordinary Americans see it as, a pay your fair share tax. Because here's the contradiction people are starting to notice. Some of the wealthiest individuals and corporations in America make billions of dollars from ordinary consumers like you and I, from our labor, our purchases, our subscriptions, our healthcare payments, our retirement accounts, our data, our investments, our productivity. Their wealth grows because millions of ordinary Americans participate in the economy every single day. But when conversations about asking billionaires to contribute even slightly more back into the society that made that wealth possible, suddenly we hear it's unfair, it hurts innovation, it's dangerous, it punishes success. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans already pay sales tax, property tax, income tax, payroll tax, gas tax, healthcare costs, and investment risk just trying to survive. And yes, many Americans are already paying combined tax burdens that can easily reach or exceed 6% through state sales tax alone, depending on where they live, while billionaires aggressively structure wealth to minimize taxation legally through loopholes, capital gain treatments, trusts, and investment strategies. That's why people become frustrated hearing billionaires lecture ordinary Americans about ownership and participation while resisting even modest increases in contributions themselves. Because the public starts asking, if the market system works so beautifully for everyone, why are the people benefiting most from it so resistant to paying more back into the country that created their success? That's That's the contradiction. Especially when the same financial class encouraging ordinary Americans to take on more market exposure often has enough wealth to survive losses ordinary families never could. And here's something most ordinary Americans don't realize about Social Security taxes. For 2026, workers only pay Social Security payroll taxes on income up to approximately $183,600. That means once someone earns above that amount, they stop paying the 6.2% Social Security payroll tax on additional income. Meanwhile, ordinary workers continue paying Social Security taxes on nearly every paycheck they earn throughout the year because most never reach that cap. So I want you to think about the contradiction. A nurse, a teacher, a truck driver, a construction worker, a small business employee. Guess what? They continue paying Social Security taxes on almost every dollar they earn. But a billionaire, celebrity, CEO, hedge fund manager, or ultra high income executive can hit the Social Security cap early in the year and then stop paying Social Security taxes on additional wages entirely. And many wealthy individuals make even more money through capital gains, investments, private equity, and stock appreciation, which are often taxed differently than ordinary wages altogether. That's why many Americans feel the system already favors wealth upward. And yet, these same financial elites often resist proposals asking them to contribute slightly more through a pay your fair share approach, while simultaneously encouraging ordinary Americans to trust market systems with their retirement, their children's future, their savings, and their economic survival. So ordinary Americans need to stop and ask, if billionaires truly believe so deeply in strengthening America, why is there always resistance when the conversation turns towards them contributing more back into the systems ordinary Americans depend on every single day? Because the average worker, well, he or she does not get to cap out of inflation. The average worker does not cap out of housing costs. The average worker does not cap out of healthcare costs. And the average worker definitely does not cap out of economic anxiety. That's why these conversations hit such a nerve emotionally for ordinary people. Think about that carefully. Elites are fighting aggressively against wealthy individuals contributing even 5% more back into the country that made their fortunes possible, while praising a future where working Americans may be expected to contribute 12% of their income into investment structures tied to Wall Street. That contradiction should not be ignored. And listen carefully to the language being used here today. We are going to have 100 million families who own these accounts. It's not government. It's ownership. It's transformational. We deprived Americans of the fruits of their hard work. Oh, it sounds empowering, but underneath it is a much larger ideological shift. What they are really describing is replacing public trust systems with market trust systems. Less belief in guaranteed social protections, more belief in financial markets, less dependence on public retirement structures, more dependence on investment accounts, less collective security, more individualized market exposure. That's the information they are openly describing, you guys. And here's the part that should concern ordinary Americans. They keep comparing this to Australia's superannuation system without fully acknowledging the massive differences between the two countries. Australia has universal healthcare structures, okay? Stronger mandatory retirement frameworks, different labor protections, different population dynamics, and a far smaller economic scale. Meanwhile, in America, millions are already struggling with debt, housing costs, medical costs, retirement anxiety, and job instability. And now the same financial class discussing AI replacing jobs is also promoting deeper long-term dependence on markets? Are you kidding? That contradiction matters because stable investing requires stable income. And maybe the most revealing sentence in this entire clip is this: we have deprived Americans of their hard work. Because ordinary Americans are not asking, how do I become more dependent on Wall Street? No, they're asking, why does hard work no longer feel like it's enough? That's the real issue. People want stable homes, retirement security, health care, dignity, fair wages, and the ability to survive without constant economic fear. But instead of rebuilding those foundations directly, the solution being proposed keeps circling back to more investing, more market participation, more capital exposure, and more trust in systems controlled by financial institutions. And maybe that is the deeper question Americans need to ask themselves. If the current system already produced extreme wealth concentration at the top, why are the same people who benefited most from that same system now telling ordinary Americans the answer is to go even deeper into it? The average people are keeping the government alive, not the wealthy who can really afford to do so.
That is the agenda, to privatize Social Security. They want somebody else to make money off of your retirement. You fund their investment. That's what they want. Their bet is that you'll be dead before you can cash out. That's what they're banking on. And that's always been what they're banking on. You'll die or still be working when it's time to collect. The idea is, as more people die, the people who are left, they'll be funded. That's always been the game. That's never been a secret. But now they want to still keep that game because it's a great scheme, right? Now they're going to take that money and enrich themselves with their crazy investment ideas while you fund it.
For decades, many Americans quietly understood something painful. The system was built with the assumption that many workers would pay into Social Security their entire lives and never fully collect what they paid in. But now people are living longer. The population is aging. Birth rates are slowing. Workforce shortages are growing. And suddenly the conversation becomes, Social Security is broken. Oh, there's too much fraud. There's too much waste. The system can't survive. And maybe that fear is exactly what makes people willing to hand over the one thing that has remained a guaranteed safety net for millions of Americans for generations. Because despite all of the political attacks, one fact remains. Social Security has never failed to send a payment, not once. And now, at the exact same time fear is growing around the future of Social Security, we are hearing powerful people openly discuss personal accounts, market participation, privatized retirement systems, and what they themselves describe as backdoor into Social Security. And that should make every American pause. Because if you convince enough people the public system is failing, then moving trillions of dollars into Wall Street suddenly starts sounding like the solution. And maybe that is the deeper question underneath this entire conversation. Is America being prepared to lose one of the last guaranteed protections ordinary people still have? You don't have to take my word on this. Listen carefully to what was said. Read the transcript for yourself. The full event transcript is linked below because I want you to hear the words directly from the people saying them. We don't do conspiracy theories here. We follow facts, language, policy, money, and outcomes because informed people are much harder to manipulate. And if this conversation, well, if it helped you think differently, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below because these conversations truly matter. And if you want more episodes breaking down what powerful people are saying openly behind the scenes, let me know. I am not an influencer. I'm a professional and I work with real people every single day. And my goal is simple: to help ordinary Americans understand the systems shaping their future so they can make informed decisions for themselves and their families. I'm Monet Swan, and I'll see you next Thursday on Talk Power Thursday, right here on Secure 65 Health Plans on YouTube. So stay informed, stay united, stay focused on facts and outcomes. Love you guys. Bye. Thank you everyone for coming out and supporting us this past Sunday, because this past Mother's Day, we were out in the community handing flowers and food boxes out to mothers, senior women across Southern California, and having a lot of fun. And while we were doing that, somebody stopped me and said, "You better be doing something for fathers too." And respectfully, I smiled and said, "Absolutely." Because at Collaborative Expansion Foundation, we honor both mothers and fathers, okay? But let me be clear, we are not celebrating titles. We are recognizing the people who chose to show up, the ones who stayed committed through the ups and the downs, the ones who led with discipline, love, sacrifice, patience, and ongoing support. Being a good father matters. Being a good husband matters. Being present, well, that matters too. So don't come at me like I only recognize women. I recognize good people. And right now, the good ones need encouragement more than ever. They need support too. They need to be seen too. So this Father's Day, Collaborative Expansion Foundation will be out in parks across Southern California, recognizing fathers who have gone the extra mile for their families and communities. The fathers who stayed, the fathers who taught, the fathers who protected, and the fathers who loved when life and loving got hard. And if that sounds like your father, well, we want to hear from you, okay? Send us a picture of your father and a short video telling us why your father is terrific. We'll feature selected fathers during our live stream and across all of our social media platforms, because good men deserve recognition, good fathers deserve honor, and positive examples deserve to become the gold standard for the next generation. So send those videos and pictures to info@collaborativefoundation.org. Let's see how many incredible fathers we can recognize this year. Happy Father's Day from Collaborative Expansion Foundation.
Secure 65 health plans where seniors thrive. Secure 65 health plans where seniors thrive.
BibX Wealth Insurance Solutions.